Madonna wanted to meet. She loved the movie and there was something she wanted me to direct. And yeah, I met with her and she goes, you know who my favorite character was? And I said, Milton? She goes, no, that Michael Bolton guy. And she said, there's just something sexy about how angry he is.
Yeah.
Jennifer Aniston and Madonna have a crush on me, everybody. Do any of you buy this?
I had a question to ask the crowd. How many people in this room saw Office Space in the theater? Not enough people. Not enough people. How many people caught up with it on Comedy Central and DVD? Okay. So safe to assume everyone has seen this movie and that's why you're here. Okay, good. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the amazing Gary Cole, who had a family obligation and couldn't be here today, but his Bill Lumbergh, the sweet, sweet performance of Bill Lumbergh. Thank you so much, Gary. And also, I want to acknowledge a young woman named Jennifer Aniston, who also appeared in this movie. She played Joanna, and she also couldn't be here today because she's Jennifer Aniston. Which is a pretty good excuse, actually. So, on to Office Space, and thank you all for being here. It's no small thing to get on a plane, to take 2 days away from your family, so we really greatly appreciate your time and being here with us. So, I'm not sure how many of you know the fledgling history of Office Space, but it began in 1991, when Mike was a musician and a fledgling animator. This is pre-Beavis and Butthead. And you made a short film called Office Space featuring Milton. And this, of course, was based on your experience working as an engineer. Jumping ahead 5 years, you had an overall deal at Fox after you had become a big deal from Beavis and Butthead. Let's give that some applause. I mean, it's the best, right? And the network president of Fox, Peter Chernin at the time, saw this feature, this short, and he thought this would make a great movie. So Mike, take us to your initial conversations with Peter Chernin. What was it that he liked about the movie, and what interested you most in translating this to a feature, but also what did you want to avoid in making this particular feature? And this was your live action debut as a director.
Yeah, well, so Peter Chernin I actually did 3 more shorts after the first kind of homemade one. He saw them all, and yeah, he said this should be a movie. I actually didn't, my first reaction was like, well, what, just a movie about Milton? And then I started thinking, like, Milton, I love the character. I don't know if, he's one of those characters you kind of don't want to know what happens outside of when you see him.
Like Milton After Hours is kind of scary, right?
It was sort of based on not any one-to-one, but there was a guy at my first engineering job. I'd been an engineer first, and he was this weird guy, not named Milton. No one talked to him. He worked in logistics or something, and one day I was kind of bored, and I just said, hey, let's call him Steve. How's it going? And he just launched into this whole thing where he's saying, like, well, if they move my desk one more time, I'm quitting. I had my fish bowl over by the window, and he just went on and on. That's where it started.
Thank you, Steve, wherever you are. Thank you, Steve.
They actually brought some writers in to pitch stuff, and I didn't really like anything, and it sat on the shelf. And then they came back to me and said, well, what if it was a movie like an ensemble cast, like Car Wash? And I said, yes, okay, what I was going to do when I was making those animated shorts was just a series of office characters. It was going to be Milton, Lumbergh, and I had some other ones before Beavis and Butthead took over my life. But yeah, so that's how it started. And then I said, okay, that I can do. And then I started writing. I started writing it in like January of '96. I just wrote a treatment, and they said, yes, this is good. And then wrote the screenplay like a year later.
Very good. And when it got to the phase of doing a table read, I know you had always had David in mind to play Michael Bolton for obvious reasons, clearly. And you knew both Stephen and David from then King of the Hill was already airing. So tell me about what you remember about the table read. Specifically, Stephen, I know you subbed in for Mike doing Milton. Mike was supposed to do Milton, but then you brought your extra special pizzazz. Yeah. What do you remember about the table read?
I was going to do the
hypnotist.
Yeah, the hypnotist,
And one of
others. And one of the Bobs, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I
You're a
was gonna-
utility player. We were going to hear
Yeah,
from you a few times.
which we do on King of the Hill all the time. You know, we'll do our main guys, and then we'll do a post office worker or something. So I was prepared for those, and then Mike decided he
was
he
about
wanted to
15
hear it.
minutes.
You wanted to hear it, right? He wanted to hear it, and
Did you
so
do Milton's affect that day, where you sort of experimented with the lisp and his bizarre
he
eccentricities?
showed me the little 2-minute pencil sketch, and then I gave it a little more lisp and
And this was, but I just wanted, just to Steven's credit, this,
Yeah.
you had never seen it. We're like 15 minutes out
Yeah.
from starting. And I just kind of panicked, like I didn't, because I did the voice. I was like, I don't want to, Steven, I just had this epiphany that Steven, I'd gotten to know him well enough that he would do something really great with it. And I said, can you just, and we went into another room. I put the VHS in and I could just see, sorry, but go ahead.
I still have the VHS actually of that little thing. But yeah, no, I said thanks for the prep, and we went. And we
You're
went
used
and
to
did
it, though. You were an experienced actor at that
it
point.
was fun. I mean, I had a blast. I had more fun doing that and the dying hypnotist.
That was a flashy role, that poor man in that one scene. And David, you were on Mad TV at the time, if I'm not mistaken. What do you remember about the table read? And I remember you saying that you had some trouble getting away from Mad TV in order to do the film. Is that true? You were on contract and had a little issue with Fox?
No comment.
He was on King of the Hill, too.
Yes, he was on King
Mike
of the Hill, too.
Mike had originally seen me in the porn version, Orifice Space, in which we gangbang a vending machine, and he just felt it was so moving. That's how I got the role.
There's going to be a lot of this coming up, so this is a good precursor to of much to come from David. Thank you, David, for that wonderful anecdote. So, by the time that you kind of workshopped the script after the table read, it was a go, okay? Now, Ron, hello, Ron. So nice to see you. At this point, you were on the heels of Swingers. Your career was taking off, but not perhaps to the degree the studio wanted in its leading man for this project.
Not even close.
Not even close. I was trying to be nice about it. They did not want Ron in this movie, just over their dead bodies. So you did audition with Nancy Klopper, the wonderful Nancy Klopper. Tell me what you remember about your audition that made an impression on her, so much so that she called Mike, who at the time was in New York meeting with Matt Damon to play the role of Peter. I know. But Ron, what do you remember about your audition where you thought, okay, I'm going to do something clever. I'm going to do something that's going to make an impression and hopefully win over the doubters?
I don't even know if it was that so much as the scene. It was the scene where the Bobs come in and the memo, and I'm sitting at the desk, and to me the tone of it and the humor of it is that he's trying to do this thing and he keeps getting interrupted. And it's kind of impossible to play that if you're just standing looking at a camera or if you're sitting in a chair, which most
Right, this is
auditions-
back in the day when you can put yourself on tape.
Oh
Everyone's in
yeah,
front
yeah.
of the
You
camera.
get your pager goes off. You know, you call the service. They say you have an audition. You have to drive to get. We didn't have fax machines. Yeah, it was a long time ago. But so Nancy had a desk in the back corner of the room, and I just said, would you mind can we turn the camera around and can I sit at the desk? Can we do it at the desk? And I had been temping for several years.
So I was going to ask if you had ever had an office job, because actually a
I
lot of
had all
actors
kinds
have
them.
not.
I had a ton of them, and most of
Okay.
them were great, honestly. If you're a temp and you know that you're going to leave at any time, that's actually really fun.
No commitment.
Yeah. And the tone of it, I just loved the tone of it. You know, it reminded me of all the kind of old Jack Lemmon comedy stuff that I, used to love. And yeah, so we did it, and I could tell Nancy liked it. And then they called me and started telling me all the reasons I wasn't going to get it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there a mention of you having to get in shape and lose weight for this
I
role?
got a call. They were going
Did
to
not come from me.
Not from Mike, no.
No, I did. On a Friday, I got a call. They were going to screen test me on Tuesday, and my reps all called me on a group call and said, they want to know if you'll fast until the until the test. And I laughed, and nobody else laughed. And then they were like, it's a real question. And I was like, I don't know, I'll try. I think I went out and jumped rope on the deck for 15 minutes. Went to bed without any eating that night, and then I gave it up the next morning. I was like, I can't, I can't do this.
Jay, you auditioned in a kind of more traditional sense, and you had just done the Richard Linklater movie Suburbia, also filmed in Austin, if I'm not mistaken. And I was really interested to know the character of Samir, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, you had written to be Iranian, but then you settled on his being from Jordan because to you that felt more timely. And tell me, Ajay, how you, first of all, did you have any sense of this type of character? Did you know someone who worked in offices? And did you kind of research this specific type of guy?
Yes, I knew so many of these dudes. Like all my like cool DJ friends at the time that were like, you know, playing like really forward-bound electronic music were also big IT dudes on the side.
This is in New York, probably, right?
In New York, okay. India, worldwide. You know, so it was kind of like, you know, they were very dichotomous. You know, I mean, in their existence, you know, they'd be like, yeah, man, we're just gonna go to the rave, and then in the morning, okay, time to go for, you know, and then off they'd go to do their thing. I always try, if I'm gonna play another guy, someone away from myself, it's always important to know where this person learned their English, right? So. Jordan, I was like, who's the guy that I know, a dude who kind of talks like that, and he's like this kind of interesting, you know, it's like Middle Eastern, and I was like, I gotta figure out what that accent is, and I remember talking to Mike and saying like, look, I really want it to be specific. I don't want it to be like that's the Middle Eastern dude, that's the Indian guy or whatever it is. So I talked to Mike and he was like, well, we can find a coach and we could do it. You know, we can figure it out. And then when I went and started sort of studied it, then I realized, oh, this is very specifically a Jordanian accent. So that is something I worked on. But yeah, I knew a lot of these dudes.
So jumping ahead, it's, I think, May of 98, spring of 98, you began production. You had 2 weeks in Austin. What were your first 2 weeks to rehearse? What were your first impressions of each other as an ensemble? When you were on, because you had sort of disjointedly joined the project at different times. When you finally gathered as a group, what did you think of each other and who was the weirdest?
I remember just feeling like, oh, I hope these guys don't freeze on set. I just really hope they don't fuck this whole thing up, because I'm good. I hope they just don't fucking freeze up, because
like, I was
a lot of money on the line.
I wasn't used to being around guys that made me laugh that much all the time. So like my face hurt all the time in rehearsal. I was like, oh God, stop it. They're relentless.
No, these were all great character actors. We all had a blast. We loved each other immediately. We didn't have to worry about it.
Steve,
100%.
Those rehearsals where we would just go in and like kind of just dick around for the first probably hour.
Kind of like Peter's 15 minutes of the day where he just stares at the wall.
You know, but I think it really kind of took the edge off, and we got to know each other a little bit better. And
it was a weird time for me because Phil Hartman had just passed, right before we did this movie at the end of a news radio season. So it was a weird headspace, but it was a great place to be, to just go let it out.
And Stephen, in terms of the, I guess, physicalization of Milton, tell me about the glasses and what other sort of physical prep you did to inhabit this very, very strange man.
Well, Mike maybe can tell you more about the glasses. Did you come up with the glasses, Mike?
Yeah, and I know that wasn't too fun for you. I just kept saying thicker.
And by the time we did it, I literally had contacts behind this thick a glass.
Yeah, they had
and
contacts.
I had
that
no
the
depth perception. So whenever I had to reach for something, I had to practice it. I had to practice reaching for because I had no clue. Yeah.
So you almost destroyed your vision for this project.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. That's a devoted artist, very much so.
No, it was great though. I loved that that affectation for him, and
100%.
the fact that he never washed any of his clothes, his ties were gravied. Yeah.
There's a lot going on with poor Milton.
Yeah.
Speaking of acting, Mike, tell me what went into the decision to play Stan, the Tchotchkes' manager, and what level of terror did you have acting opposite one of the most popular people working in television at that time, Jennifer Aniston?
High level of terror, for sure. So that came about. That was a very last-minute addition to the script.
Because you had a local casting person here too, working for some of the side characters, right?
Yeah, a lot of great local actors. The guy Todd Duffy, who played the cheery waiter guy, was actually on Barney, which is done in Dallas, and I added that at the last minute, auditioned a bunch of people. I've run into one of them since, and it's always sort of like, why did I waste my time when you put yourself in? But I did, people kept, it was if you've all seen the movie, everyone was trying to make it big and goofy and funny, and I just had this specific thing that was like an imitation of a orchestra conductor I had. It was just really passive aggressive and just, and I just couldn't get anyone to do it, and then I just thought I'll play it myself, and then almost immediately regretted it.
But the casting person said perfect, and you were locked in at that point.
Yeah, so I put myself on tape. I legitimately auditioned for myself, and then I showed it to Nancy Klopper and Daniel Rappaport at the same time, and Nancy, I think, was about to say she didn't like it, and Daniel Rappaport said, "Oh, you got to do it. That's great. That's it," and I just said, "Okay, I'm going to do it." But it was interesting because I had this wig and mustache and came to set and nobody recognized me. I mean, we'd been working 16-hour days, and I saw a whole other side to some of the people. In fact, Daniel Rappaport was like, I said, "Daniel, what do you think?" And he looks at me and he's like, doesn't say anything and starts to walk away. I said, "Daniel," and he's like stumbling over cords to get away from me and find somebody to throw me off the set.
So you said mission
It's Mike
accomplished.
Judge. But yeah.
And what was it like working with Jennifer? She told me once that she had a crush on you while you were filming.
I didn't get that sense at all. I think when she flipped me off in that scene, it felt very real. No, it was great. I mean, she is really a great comedy actor, great comedy timing. She added a lot to the whole thing. Like her and Ron, there was some stuff there in the car when they're getting pissed. It was like really good. That was kind of spur of the moment, and she was great.
This was a very stressful experience for you. It was your first live action feature, obviously. But the studio wasn't loving what they were seeing. And in one aspect, they said Ron needed to smile more.
That's the best. It's a comedy.
It's a comedy.
Why aren't you smiling?
Smile.
Why are you smiling?
David. This is not Mad TV, David. Ron, you have said that you were worried about being fired.
I wasn't at all.
You weren't?
I would have smiled more if I was worried. I had no idea, really. I was kind of I remember, Mike, you came to me kind of like, Ron, we're just getting some notes. And,
I just wanted to be able to say, yeah, I talked to him.
I was so clueless. I was kind of like, oh, well, those don't make any sense. And then, and so then one of the execs from the studio kind of came and had a little talk with me. And I think I was used to doing an independent film where there was no such thing as a reshoot, and I felt like, well,
no
we've
studio
already shot
execs,
this for
right.
4 or 5 days, so they can't possibly replace me.
Oh, they can always replace. They can always replace. And Mike, was it uncomfortable for you to have to be the intermediary between that feedback when you knew that, of course, Ron was doing exactly what you needed him to do, but the studio wasn't really getting it yet?
No, I mean, they had a different vision for it, I guess. I mean, the thing I loved about Ron's performance, and the reason that a lot of people auditioned, including some big shots, but they all either did. There were 2 versions that seemed to happen. It was either like Dawson's Creek type guys who were just always like, hey Milton, maybe we could turn that down. Yeah. And just like, or you would get like these guys who were just like, oh, I can't stand it here. And to me, like the whole thing when I worked in those jobs was I didn't think that I was better than that place.
Right.
And
it was like a confidence thing.
Yeah, I was just like I was happy for the job, which made it even worse because like I guess this is as good as I can get. And I think I was kind of thinking of actors like Charles Grodin, and I remember you might have even said something after you had already gotten the part, and we were that you were kind of thinking that way too.
Oh, that's one of my guys.
Yeah,
Charles and Jack
that was
Lemmon,
like,
the everyman sort of character, right?
Yeah, no one else played it like that.
Well, we're so glad. We're so glad you stuck with it. So one of the most iconic scenes, enduring scenes, is of course the printer scene.
Again,
Yes.
better in the porn version.
Better.
The vending machine. There isn't an orifice. Sorry.
I so appreciate the energy he's giving. I'm so grateful, David. Thank you so much. So the printer scene was inspired by a real vitriol that you, Mike, felt for an actual printer while you were writing Beavis and Butthead, the movie. What was your dream scenario for shooting this? And I know that there were some challenges on the day that made it a little bit different from what you envisioned in terms of camera work and cinematography and also location. So tell me how you navigated that.
Yeah, what I remember, so that was the second day of shooting, and I mean, this was, like the immediacy of it. You get this. It's like, okay, Jesus, this each day costs like $200,000 or something, and you get there, and it's like, I had imagined it. We shot really early in the morning because I'd imagined the sun was going down, and it was like this celebratory thing, and it was overcast, and then I started to think, wait, this is actually kind of perfect. Like it's more like angry feeling or something. And so I kind of went with that, and that Ghetto Boys song was just playing in my head. It's called Still Die Motherfuckers. And then I remember talking to these guys and like, I don't know, I was trying to be a director, like just think of something you hate so much. They're like, no, we got this. And once we started, and then Tim Scherstedt, he goes, it would be cool. Like
he's the cinematographer,
yeah,
right?
cinematographer, greatest. And he said we could dig a hole and put the camera down there and just put sandbags in the side of the printer and just see these guys beating the shit out of it. And just the energy was so amazing. And Ajay, you want to, remember you had Ajay does that amazing kick.
There are lots of amazing kicks. Your
breakdown.
range was amazing.
David Herman almost got, I'll just say one, like, I was a first-time director. I'm like, hey, David, just jump up in the air and just stomp on it. And it broke, and he slipped, like almost could have easily lacerated himself. And my first AD, Rip Murray, goes, what he said, something like, okay, Mr. Landis, referring to that. I was like, oh, shit, I gotta be really careful here. Almost severely injured David Herman. But anyway, yeah, Jay, what was it, the stunt guy?
He was amazing. This stunt and fight guys were so cool because they kind of like infused it with this kept in effort overcome thing. I remember there's he showed me how to pass the bat or move him out of the way with the bat. He's like, don't get in it. Don't try to do anything. Just be like, this is my turn. You know what I mean? It's just like, when you're really doing somebody. Yeah. You know what I mean? You got to think, I mean, I think I told this story one time. Like I was out front of this is gonna be a little bit long-winded. I was out front of this cigar store in New York, and inside the place were these like really, really scary dudes. And I didn't even realize I was there. And this guy comes out and he's like, "Hey man, come in here." And I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" And I went in there and he was like, brought me in and he showed me to the guys and they were like, "Look who it is." And they were like, "Oh yeah." I just want to tell you, we thought it was very authentic, the way that you did the thing. And I was like, thank you. Thanks
These
very
are
much
some like
having me in.
Like Little Italy types we're talking about here?
Yeah,
Yes. Sure.
Hey,
They know their stuff.
They look like they were involved.
Well, needless to say, that scene is more indelible than ever. So
No, but that kept in, like the kind of kept in rage until he is allowed, until Michael's allowed to like just like, and then for us then, for Ron and I to be like, oh man, that's too bad. Like, no, don't let yourself go. Don't let yourself get out of hand, man. You don't need to lose yourself to beat the shit out of this printer. You know what I mean? Come on, man. But then he goes back for another one. Back, you know what I mean? So and that immediately showed this kind of like, I thought, incredible camaraderie and sort of love between them, because it's like this, it's a real contradiction in the way it's done.
I think we made the decision on the day that you wouldn't actually.
Yeah,
you were
He's gonna hold back.
I felt strongly that I shouldn't hit the thing, and I remember that, you know,
It's a
first
gift.
AD was kind of like, we're here if you need to do this, but it really felt like, no, this is like I'm blooding these guys, you know what I mean? And this is where, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know, it just felt like a
Gift
thing.
for us.
It was a
You know what I
gift.
mean? Go ahead, guys. You know, take it out.
Stephen, I'd love to talk about the stapler, the iconic red stapler. And I know that there was, yes, let's give the stapler some applause. The unsung hero of this production.
Swing line, yes, let's hear it.
So I know originally you had tried to license either the Boston or Bostish staplers, but they wouldn't allow you to use the branding. So then you had to shift to Swingline, but they didn't make a red. So tell me about having to adjust to that and what the prop masters did on set.
I learned all this stuff afterwards because the prop guy had made a swing line that was very thin. It was, and the ones they finally made later on were a different model than we had used in the movies. Is that right?
Yeah, no one made a red stapler.
Right.
I just wanted it to stand out, just because everything's kind of gray and staplers were all in shades of gray. And then we also moved the Swingline logo to the side, so
Right.
you could see it. So when they finally, Swingline ended up making red staplers because there were people making them and selling them on eBay, and they were selling so many. Wall Street Journal did a whole thing about it, and then but they put it on the top, and then people started complaining, and finally Swingline, I think, makes them where it's on the side now.
Yeah.
Mike, I would like to talk about, and I'll say the discussions you had with Tom Rothman about using rap on the soundtrack, which for me is one of the best parts of the movie. It's hard to imagine it without it. Tell me about navigating that, but also how a focus group sort of swung the favor toward your direction, and ultimately his saying, fine, we'll let Ghetto Boys and Ice Cube.
Well, I love Tom Rothman. The movie wouldn't have happened without him. He put his ass on the line, put the money in. He did have a lot of opinions that were different than my opinions. But one of the big ones was, his battle cry the whole time, including wanting Ron to smile, was, I just want it to be fun. And I would say, well, I think it is fun. And yeah, but this, and he hated the gangster rap stuff. And
you had written the script listening to Ghetto Boys, so it was sort of like informing your whole...
Yeah, I kept thinking about, the thing that's funny, that music, at that point, it had been in a lot of the kind of gangsta movies, but I hadn't seen anyone use it just purely for the energy and the anger of it, and it just seemed to me like it would be really funny. I had the thing in the beginning where David Herman locks the door when he's rapping along. Like I'd had that. I didn't lock not the lock the door thing, but I remember driving I bought a Saab when I first got money. I don't know why. And I was listening to Ghetto Boys, and just I knew every lyric, and I thought, God, this just must look ridiculous to somebody. But I thought it'd make a funny scene in a movie, and then I thought maybe that is a theme. But yeah, Rothman kept arguing and saying you got to take that song out, and finally I did something I probably should not have done, but it worked. I should have just said no. I'll take my name off the movie. That's the song, but. I said, okay, if the next test screening, if the focus group says they don't like the music, I'll take it out, which I should not have done. But so it gets to the focus group, and the moderator, she was trying so hard to pollute the water. She goes, it gets to the question. She goes, so it's like 20 people, and it's in a theater, and we're behind them. And she goes, so what did you think about the music? And then all 20 of them just started going, oh, it was great. And she's going like this, and she goes, but what about some of the rap songs? And then, oh, it was great. And she's like, but maybe there were too many of them. And she tries to get somebody to nod along with her, like, but maybe, and they would not give her anything. And then she goes, was it, you think it was maybe a little too profane? And this one guy who was like 19, he just basically explains to her everything I'd been saying to Rothman. He goes, no, but that's what's cool about it. It's like these nerdy white boys and the music's angry and everything. And to Tom Rothman's credit, like, I looked over, he was pacing the aisle like he always would.
So he was there for that?
Yeah, he was there. I was sitting, and I look over at him, and he just goes... And but he never said anything about it again. He kept his word, and so the music's in there.
If you watch the pilot, the trailer's like Fatboy Slim. It's like, right about now, it's the Funk Soul Brother. I mean, they wanted like Chumbawamba for this thing, right? And that's what a wholly different movie this would be if it was right about now, it's the Funk Soul Brother.
I can't even. I think I've only watched the trailer once. I remember they sent me 14 versions of trailers, and I was actually like, oh, some of these aren't bad. And I remember writing down, I don't like number 7 and number 13, and get on the conference call. We really like 7 and 13. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know.
Oh, the struggles.
It's tough.
So, opening weekend, February of '99. You know, Fox had a huge hit the previous summer with Something About Mary. So in a lot of ways, they were trying to kind of coast on that success with this movie. And the movie, of course, did not open to the gangbusters numbers that you were hoping for. And I think ultimately it made under 11-ish million. Is that right?
Sounds
around that time?
Right.
What do you remember about opening weekend? And obviously the way that we consume movies in '99 even vaguely doesn't bear any resemblance to even 10 or 15 years ago, but people went to movies opening weekend to see the movie. What do you remember about the way the movie was marketed and the way it was placed that made you feel uneasy, like we're not being set up for the success that you hoped for?
It was all, I mean, look, it's probably a tough movie to market, to be fair. I think, you know, it was R-rated, so they tried, I don't know, I've never even seen I think that, like I say, I saw the trailer once. I think at one point they were trying to do this like, ooh, it's so naughty trailer to make it like Something About Mary, and it just didn't work. But no, I knew it wasn't gonna open big. I mean, part of me, the Beavis and Butthead movie was supposed to come in like 5th or 6th, according to the tracking. This one, and then miraculously it was like #1 and set a box office record. This, I was thinking like, oh, maybe something crazy will happen, and no, it didn't. But, you know, I mean, it was a bummer because I fought so hard for all these choices and for the cast and the music, and I just kind of felt like I let everybody down, and, you know, because it affects other people's careers too, you know. It's like, oh, God, did I just drag Jennifer Aniston down? And Ron's first movie as a lead, I think, right? Well, other than the little Indian one. But
we love you, Mike. You didn't let us down.
Oh, no, I'm
That's
fine
all that
now,
matters.
don't it? Yeah.
He's fine. He's fine.
It took me a couple of weeks to get over it.
So, though the movie didn't perform financially in the way you hoped, your profile sort of did rise. You had some big folks coming out of the woodwork to tell you that they love your work. So this is the segue to the Madonna story that I would love for you to share, as it also includes David. Yes,
well, I kind of didn't want to hear how it did, and then, you know, I just didn't answer calls from my manager, and I'd seen that it had come in like 8th place or something. And then Michael Rotenberg, my manager, kept calling me, and he was saying, hey, can you call me back? And then he said, the first thing that happened is I got an amazing message from Chris Rock that was just, I saved it for years, just saying how much he loved it. And he said, you got to make another movie because everyone's going to steal your ideas. You got to keep making them. And then, it was really nice. And then Rotenberg said, Jim Carrey wants to meet you, and I was a huge fan. I'd never met him. And then just other people called, John Landis actually called. David Zucker, and like all these, Amy Heckerling, and all these people, like great directors that I looked up to. And then Madonna wanted to meet. She loved the movie and there was something she wanted me to direct. And yeah, I met with her and she goes, you know who my favorite character was? And I said, Milton? She goes, no, that Michael Bolton guy. And she said, there's just something sexy about how angry he is.
Yeah.
And then we were doing King of the Hill, and I said, Dave, you're not going to believe this, what Madonna said. And David said, okay, you're going to have to tell that story. I can't tell that story. No one's going to believe it from me.
Well, believe it, because it happened, right?
Who's that? Jennifer Aniston and Madonna have a crush on me, everybody. Do any of you buy this?
Yes, we do. I love that. And for the actors, how did your careers shift and change? I know, Ron, you would go on to do Band of Brothers, which is a very different project. Amazing work in Band of Brothers. Did you see different roles coming in? Did you see different offers? Because this was, even though it wasn't like, quote, a box office hit, in the industry, I imagine people were like, this is fucking funny. And so you had fans probably percolating on the business side.
No.
Not so much? Oh. I was trying to set you up for success there. Okay.
No, it was when I booked it, and when we made it, it felt like there was a groundswell. But then when it didn't open, it was kind of like...
I'm not going to let you do that again, Ron.
Yeah, it was a little bump. But it was just then a couple of years later, it started ratcheting up. I remember I was on the West Side, and I walk in and I see, and there's Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl comes walking up, and he's like, "Hey, I just got to say, Office Space changed my life." Right?
Why was he in an office job before that?
I had no idea, and I couldn't. I was kind of so flustered at seeing Dave Grohl, I couldn't think of anything to say except mine too.
And how about you, Ajay and Stephen and David? Did you start to see new work coming in, or did it kind of feel like, okay, I made another kind of cult classic?
That was really the busiest time I had was then. Because I was doing King of the Hill with Mike, doing the movie, got a call to do Tom Hanks's From the Earth to the Moon, and another sitcom. So it was like, I don't know whether it came from that, but yeah, a lot of stuff was happening around that time.
And Ajay?
When we were doing this, I was pretty busy, and then then this movie, when it didn't I guess stay open, like I was like, oh, that's too bad, because that was really, really good. You know what I mean? But then like a year or so later, some huge dude on the ski lift was like, yo! And I was like, what? and then he was like, come on, man, the movie, I was like, oh, well, you saw that? Cool. You know what I mean? And then it started to become more and more. Career-wise, it's hard to. Sorry.
Yeah. Did Gary Cole or any of the other guys come up to you guys and say, have people been coming up to you and saying stuff from the movie? Because they did for me and did for Gary. Sure, they did for you, Ron.
I remember talking to Gary about that. Yeah. We were both puzzled, I think.
Yeah, we were.
Well, Gary had told me he had never had an office job. He only had serving jobs in restaurants. So he didn't understand how miserable office workers were until he became like the face of the devil of the office. So he was stunned to find this out. So he obviously went in the right job. He never had to have an office job. And David, your career has
I've
continued
remained
to
on the
rise.
same rung of celebrity ladder. I'm on the same rung as the dancing bear and the roller skating parakeet. I'm not joking. I do cameo. I do it for charity, by the way. So can I get a round of applause for that?
Dave Herman.
I do it for charity, but honest to God, there's a hippo from the Cleveland Zoo who has more followers than I do and charges 3 times as much as I do. They feed him heads of lettuce. Granted, I can't eat a head of lettuce in one swallow, but I'm learning so I can move up one celebrity rung for all of you.
I'll David Herman and I were walking down Congress like about 2 years after Office Space came out, I think it was, and this couple comes up to David and goes, "Oh my God, your movie Office Space, it changed my life. I quit my job," and they're saying this stuff, and then David points to me and goes, "Well, he wrote it and directed it," and they go, "Oh, hey, yeah, anyway."
That sounds about right, unfortunately.
Which was
So,
fine with me, but
David, before I forget to ask, did you ever get any feedback or I guess reaction from Michael Bolton about the way you described him as a no-talent ass clown? Because musicians can be a little sensitive about being cast that way. Did you ever have an interaction with him?
I've never met him,
Okay.
but honest to God, I'm scared if I do that he might kick my ass. and that would be the worst. Because he's like, what, 14 years older than me, too? And
He
and
seems like a
I don't
fake
think he's
guy.
well right now also, so I don't want to
Yeah.
joke about it, but he
Yeah.
he probably could kick my ass.
We also appreciate the usage of him to make us laugh. And who didn't like a Michael Bolton song at some point? Me, really. No? Okay.
Herman, you came up with ass
him
clown,
well.
though, right? You came up with that?
Did because the original line was no singing,
No singing,
asshole, and I think there was something legal
Yeah,
about
legal-
saying no singing, like it's being
legal said don't say no singing, and they
So it
suggested
would
no
imply
talent.
that he's mini.
Oh yeah, maybe. But they
he
said,
didn't
how about
actually sing?
saying no talent, which is meaner. And then
Legal was okay
David
with
was
that.
always like, you were always spicing up the cuss words in there.
Well, we
So ass
actually
clown.
had a guy come around saying that they were looking for the show, for the movie to have a PG-13 rating, and I was like, I'm single-handedly going to cuss like a sailor to the point where, and if you do look at those, whatever those warnings, parent warning things, they'll say strong language is why this has an R rating, thanks to me. And I think there's like, one brief nudity, which means what? There's one case of underwear somewhere, right?
The breast exam,
Oh, the
Oh,
breast
it is,
exam.
right.
which was stock footage from a PBS thing.
That's
actually.
right.
Yes.
One case of
Breast
nudity.
Exam. Oh, Lawrence. We miss Lawrence, too. Okay, so Mike, the legacy of Office Space, as is evidenced by this room, is indisputable. We're so happy you made this movie. TPS reports have been referenced in such series as Lost, The Mandalorian, Rescue Me, and yes, even NCIS. I know. You've made it when it's a reference on NCIS. You also presciently predicted the so-called phenomenon of quiet quitting. Peter was the first person to quiet quit, and now it's a thing. So I'm just saying. I know. And in my opinion, you also created the blueprint for stories about office life that depict it as it is, which is miserable. And you were approached to adapt Ricky Gervais's The Office for American TV, and you said no, which I think is so baller of you. What are you proudest of having made this film, and how has its legacy made your life better?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, I'm proud of the movie. There were so many times where I wanted to, early on was like, okay, I'm just going to pull the plug on this. Why should I make such a weird movie? I don't know. I'm proud I stuck with it. Wait, what was the second part of the question?
No, just the legacy of this film, because it continues to reverberate. And by the way, Silicon Valley, amazing. Without this movie, we may not have Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
A lot of similar themes. But was it a real turning point for you as an artist to say, I have to stick with this. I know what I'm doing. I believe in. It's going to be funny. I just have to be given the freedom to do it the way I want to do it.
Yeah, well, once we were making it, I knew I had to stick to my guns. Otherwise, if you're not committing to what it's supposed to be, it was going to really suck. So that was good. I mean, it really was to have it become successful. This delayed reaction was really probably like kind of the sweetest victory because it comes out and then everyone's like, oh, I told you so. You shouldn't have cast those people. Maybe next time you'll listen to us. And then gradually, like, oh, wait a second. Now it's like it creeped into the, back in these like home video days. It creeped into like the top 10, top 20, like 2 years after, and it'd be like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, like Office Space. So it really, really was nice vindication, and just I always love hearing people say they like it, just because we all committed to it and worked hard on it, and to have it fail at first makes it even better that
Agreed.
it succeeded later.
So in this era of reboots and revisiting previous work, I'd like to know what you think these characters are doing today. Let's start with Peter. Where did Peter end up? Are he and Joanna married, living in the burbs? What does their life look like now?
I don't know. He might be in an ashram somewhere.
His spiritual journey?
I'm not. He's probably still trying to figure it out.
Okay.
You know?
So the journey didn't end there. He became a seeker after his hypnosis.
Yeah, I think he's probably bouncing from one thing to the. He's probably in Nexium for a while. I don't know.
To another.
Well, either way, we know he's working remotely because he doesn't want to be working in an office.
Right.
And how about Samir? I feel like Samir got married to a nice girl, had
Yeah,
numerous
I
children.
always think of him as very wholesome and did well and stayed focused and was a very nose to the grindstone. Had a very nice wife, very good couple kids, everything chill, just living there and being like, hey, how are you? Good. Very, very uneventful is what I mean, because I think he had to address his ire and rage.
Well, he wanted job security too. He said that if we're still doing this at 50, that's job
So
security.
he got that.
He got that.
And
I
break
think so.
dancing on the side, maybe.
And
a little bit.
breakdancing on the side.
That's weekend time. Now he's like a little arthritis and thing like that. But that's okay. He still gets loose when he has.
I feel good about where Samir would be. And then Stephen, what possibly could be going on with Milton today? Is this something any of us can understand?
Milton is wedged between the bathroom door and the toilet, rotting away. That's what I think.
Oh, poor Milton. And David, where is your
Well,
alter
speaking
ego?
of which, we're very excited to tell you all we are doing a reboot. We're going to be doing Office Space the musical on ice at the Chaparral Center. I'll give you just a taste. TPS. 3 little letters, yet are met with apprehension. 3 little letters that elude all comprehension. TP. That's all you'll have to pay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Herman! Dave Herman!
Thank you. I should say, Steven isn't the strongest skater. So if you want to see Steven, come to the opening night, because he's got quite a few numbers that require velocity, and we don't know if he'll be making it through the entire run. So please, come opening night. Thank you.
There have been 2 Office Space musicals done, and that was better than anything in both of them.
And Mike, I'd like to know, where do you think Lumberg is these days? Is he retired? Is he living
God.
on a tropical island somewhere?
He died. No,
That's so
boy,
sad.
I don't know.
What to do?
No, I think he's continued to fail, succeed. What do you call it? Rise to the level of his incompetence or something like that. I mean, all those kind of middle management people seem to do just fine.
And the one character I'm most interested to know what he's doing today is Drew, the O-face guy.
Well,
Born again.
Greg, born again Christian.
8 kids.
The actual actor, who I think is great.
He's a local hire, right?
No, he was actually in L.A. He's from Florida.
He's from Florida.
He started acting in was it SeaWorld or something, in one of those things, and he moved back to Florida, became a realtor, and now he's moved back to L.A. and he's going to act again. So we saw him. He was at one of the 20th things. Yeah.
I love it. I love a good comeback. Well, before we wrap, I just want to thank you, Mike, for making this movie, for trusting your gut.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And thank you for casting such wonderful people in your movie, all of whom are lovely and hilarious and just good guys. And we really appreciate you being here. Happy 25th anniversary to Office Space. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you.